now we're in a new consciousness as I believe light workers on this planet to alchemize all the crap that our parents and our grandparents could never be in the consciousness to heal and create a world that's much more based on truth.
That is Kyle Cease. He is a transformational comedian. You heard that right. He says that transformation doesn't have to be boring. At the height of his comedy career, he left it all behind to follow the call on his life. And he works with folks to help them understand that they are not who they were or who they will be. And he helps folks recognize who they are right now and the power of right now. I had a crazy lesson about this in this conversation.
What you know, I love it. I had all these notes, but it just died.
I did that.
Oh, and fun fact, Amber Cease joined us as well. Y'all aren't ready for this, y'all. You better buckle in. This is Kyle and Amber Cease.
Kyle Cease. Let's play like a fun little scenario game. If you're on an airplane and there's a stranger sitting next to you and they look over and they're super casual about it, but they're like, what do you do for a living? How do you respond on that airplane?
I'm a plumber.
You probably would do. You probably would say that. Really, would you?
It depends on the state of my life I'm in. I think there's a boy in me that wants approval, and it depends on how. Actually, honestly, there have been so many different facets of my life that it really would depend who the person is because I have a different answer for different people.
Yeah.
I had done teen movies that were really big movies that are 25 years old, like the movie 10 Things I Hate About You. I had a Comedy Central career. So if I feel like I'm with a person in their 40s who feels unconscious, I'll tell them that
Yeah.
because they're not going to
Yeah.
care about this airy fairy thing I do. If I'm with if the person happens to be more present and feeling wiser and awake, I would say I am a transformational speaker and I use comedy to help people heal the parts of themselves that are not true. If it's a monk, I probably won't talk and interrupt them. It depends.
Well, I'll tell you,
Um,
I found you because I didn't know you as a comedian or on TV or anything. I found you really on, I would say, an airplane. It's funny because that's always my staple question at the beginning is the airplane question. But really, I dug into your work. I was leaving a conference and I think it was 2019, and I got on the airplane. I loved whatever you said on the stage, and I went and bought your book, and I sat on the airplane. But I wanted to tell you this because I remember sitting on that plane and I felt so sad that day and so insecure and so because I'd left this conference where there were a lot of really successful people with a lot more money than me and a lot more followers and all the things, and I had been working and grinding and posting and working on the weekends and all the stuff you're supposed to do, and I just wasn't seeing any traction. And I just remember feeling like a big old loser on that airplane. Like, man, what is wrong with you, girl? Like, all these people are killing it and you're not. Which I usually left that conference feeling really good, but for some reason then I didn't. But I started reading this book on the airplane, and it's started shifting something in me because I started realizing that my attachment to success, outward success, was something separate. And there was like an identity issue with me of who was I as a human being without $1 million and without 1 million followers. And was I okay with that, Heather?
yes.
And that was, 7 years ago now. And I've just been on this journey of, reading more books and learning and doing the healing work that's ever continuing. But it was such a distinct memory. I'll never forget it, opening this book. So it's just a freaking treat to be able to talk to you. I have a lot of questions about it, and I know that you have evolved a lot since then and maybe have different thoughts than what you wrote in the book, but it was really meaningful for me. So I just want to say thank you for that.
I'm so touched, truly. And I feel it's so interesting. I feel the energy of, even though I know that quite a bit of it's transcended in a beautiful way, I just feel the presence for the girl inside that just is like, am I enough?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And it's interesting how it took being in that room with those other people to create the comparer to ask that.
Yeah.
But even without that, there is this unconscious base that we have that's all very similar, but might have different words like, am I enough? Or I can't be a failure, or, I'm lost, or I'm nothing, or I'm evil, or I'm sad, or I'm dark, or whatever it is. There's just this kind of dark wound. And the interesting thing that I would tell her also is, just so you know, all those other people in the room that have all those followers, they also have that pain. They just have
Mm-hmm.
the addiction of the followers to tell them they are enough, but the wound's still there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like some people, I get the external to feel good enough so I don't have to look at this thing. And in
Yeah.
a way, you're almost ahead of them because at one point their followers might drop off, or they might never know this and get more and more addicted. But they're under it is a wound that we're all
Right.
carrying
Right.
that, yeah, we can cover up for a while when you hit millions of views, but at the same time, there's this energy that we get to hear that is in here. And the beautiful thing that we should all know is that almost everyone has it. And I think
Amen.
that the trick that we're all in is nobody else has it. Like
Yeah.
in the social media world, everyone looks like their life is perfect. And even I know other major speakers that are very successful. We're all backstage sad.
Yeah.
We're all,
Yeah.
even the best ones. Everyone's like, well, that person's enlightened. I'm like, oh, the more enlightened they look, the more pain is there.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and so just know that we're all in the mud together, and it's okay.
Amen. And then what I've been, kind of try to ask myself with reflecting back on your book and that point in my life and stuff is just this invitation to get okay without and okay, whatever that without is. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
am I okay just in the now? Am I okay just in my body and in myself? And I'm curious, like, your thought on that assessment and how has your opinion changed about kind of what is the work now? If I'm noticing this manifestation of no money or not the followers or the attention or whatever Western society says is important. If I notice that that's not in my life, what is the
Hmm.
work? What's the invitation there?
Isn't it interesting you pointed out, like you said something that we could overlook easily, but I just want to point out you said that Western society feels, which is true,
Mm-hmm.
but that means that it's not the truth. In other
Preach.
words,
Yes.
if a way is only a way in one place,
Yes.
then it's not God's truth. It's
Yeah.
just the West, right?
Right.
And so I really think one of the things I really love to look at is how much, first of all, the ego is not rooted in truth, right? Like, let's really think if like, and you can just start to question it and it'll reveal itself as not rooted in truth. So, for instance, if I am what people think about me, that's an egoic thing. I am what people think about me or people's opinions
Right.
are. Well, if that person has a bad opinion and that one has a good opinion, then it's already broken. Like,
Yeah.
because it would all, if it was true, they would all have the exact same opinion about me. Or another example would be like, we'd all be triggered by the exact same thing. Our triggers have nothing to do with the outside. It has to do with what it's bringing up on the inside.
Mm.
It can't mean that it's true that I am how much money I have. There are people that have different amounts of happiness that are broke, and some that are totally miserable that are multimillionaires. And you start to go, okay, happiness is not based on how much money I get. So we start to break down that the ego's constructs are false, and that's why it's falling apart. And in fact, if I say to your viewers right now, or we just hear the sentence, if I say everything's perfect, watch how the ego doesn't like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The ego will fight that. It will look for it. It doesn't know my story, and literally avoids peace, the truth of the peace that's here. It avoids, right? It
Yeah.
avoids left and right, everything's okay. It thrives on things aren't okay. So the ego can feel like the hero that overcomes its okayness, but it also has to create the sabotage that it has to overcome. So the ego will
It's
create
wild.
a sabotage of, whatever.
Yeah.
You're breaking an addictive pattern and you're about to heal and it goes, let's start drinking again. Or
Mm.
let's pick the friends that our soul doesn't align with, but are the friends that we're gonna have to that are going to knock our life over and then we can fix that. Let's pick the relationship that isn't what our soul would want and then we can fix that externally so we don't actually have to heal. So the construct of, here's a great thing that I've done probably in the last 16 years, 15,000 one-on-ones easily. And
Whoa.
yeah, whether it was one-on-ones privately or in a group setting or on a stage or doing hot seats on my membership site, I've done so many of them. And I find we all are the same. I mean, it is so close. Every person does the same thing, just in different clothes. But one of the things that I hear a lot is the big fear people have is I'm not enough.
Hmm.
And one of the things I love to do is get really specific with that ego that says that. And I go, hey, ego, just so we know, and this person can be enough, how do you measure enough? Like when the ego says you're not enough, and I go, okay, just so we know, when is enough? What is that?
Hmm.
The ego right away will not give you an answer. Is it when I get six figures? Is it when I get seven figures? Is it when a
Yeah.
dad says good job? Is it when I get married? The ego thrives on staying not enough because if you could eventually be enough, then the ego's dead. So the ego has to stay vague and say you're not enough, but if you ever reach the goals that would make it enough, the ego won't be happy. So the ego thrives under vagueness. It thrives in darkness with no being seen. Like if you
Hmm.
see it, then it's dead. So it also wants to keep your distraction on the external. And so I just love to break down how the ego is not rooted in truth. And the more our light is shining in this time, like in other words, 2026 is really the collective light is shining so brightly
Come on. Yes, it
that
is. Yeah.
and people think, nah, everything's getting darker. No, no, no. It's revealing the darkness that's been here forever. It's
Yes.
it's just it's just revealing. When people think life was so much easier in the past, it was because you were ignorant to the traumas in your body, who the government really was, what the media really is, what's going on in the world. So all that's happening is a truth light. That's it.
Mm.
And it's shining on what is not true, like the idea that you're not enough, the idea that you're a failure. All of these things are drowning in the sunlight of truth in this time. And you start to realize it doesn't even the positive egoic things don't make sense. Oh, good, I know what I am going to do in the future. Well,
Mm.
that doesn't make sense because your future changes constantly. So a false sense of certainty that even is positive is also a lie. And you start to realize the truth is only now.
Mm. The truth
And
is light now.
yes. So it's breaking apart our false sense of selves that think I'm finally something because I have enough money. I'm finally something because people like me. I'm finally something because I accomplished something. And what is not true is that I am what I do or what people think or whatever. In fact, people, when they hear this, they go, okay, so what do I do? And you realize that was the ego that asked that. Right? Because the ego asks, what do I do out of a fear so that I'm not enough, and so that I'm not a failure, so that I'm not. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So
It
a
does.
better question would be, what's here?
Mm.
Right? Do you notice how open that is? What's here? Pain, fear. Okay. And we just become the light to see it. Right? So in this moment, you could find pain or fear or not enough because it's exposed if you're here. Right? And so the now is this healer that life is forcing us to be because all the things that we had together
Mm.
were going to collapse because they aren't based on truth.
Damn, I don't even know where to go with that, man. There's so much
I know.
stuff there. Shoot.
Yeah, yeah. Pick and choose. I'm sorry, the
Well,
tangents go very
no, no,
far.
no. I want to go into the doing and like all the possibility of the now. One of the questions, I think it was from your documentary that was on the book.
Mhm.
What you know, I love it. I had all these notes, but there it just died. So let's go. Um,
I did that.
yeah, yeah. One of to be in the now. That's what you asked us to
Isn't
do.
that,
Isn't
yeah,
that
like
interesting?
maybe.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. I mean, I find the universe is just setting us up to get that healing on super fast speed
Yeah,
now. And
yeah,
maybe any semblance of control or wanting to do this the right way, or, not wanting to do it wrong, or not wanting to be a disappointment, wanting to get the most views,
yeah,
all those are being
yeah,
killed
yeah,
while you and I and my wife sitting here, Amber, who will join us eventually,
yeah.
probably, are just heart to heart. And in fact, that laptop died. Is that what you're saying? Your iPad
It
died with your notes?
literally, yes.
Yeah. So what is revealed? Okay. So all of a sudden, our hearts are seeing Amber's over here cheering us on. All of a
Come on,
sudden,
Amber.
you know what else? You know what else dies too? Is
Hmm.
our story, our separate self, meaning like the part of you, maybe even from the past that would compare, that says, I have this and he has this or whatever. I
Right,
have zero
right,
past, right? I
right.
didn't, my past, imagine if you and I are only now and there's no story, there's no past accomplishments, there's no comparison, there's no doing it right, there's no pedestals either way, there's nothing. We're just two kids in grown-up bodies being, right? And now the questions that arise or the conversation might have more depth than the strategy that was going to do this when God might have been like, yeah, I'm going to remove your training wheels so you can ride a mountain bike through the mountains versus ride a kid's bike.
It's
I don't
literally
know.
it's literally what happened because I had a list of pretty badass questions. I mean, these are good questions. I like them a
Yeah.
lot. But when you were talking a minute ago, you said something, and I was like, that I don't understand that. That's interesting. Then I was like, well,
Yeah.
you don't want to get too off topic, Heather. So I noticed myself do that now. So let's go back to the thing I
What if
really
you let
wanted to
yourself,
ask you.
what if I threw in also not that you have to or we need to aim for it, but what if you make it okay if we go off topic?
I
In
know,
other words, what
I
if it's a
know, I
who
know,
said that, right?
I
Who said
know,
you can't go off topic, right? What is, you get what I mean? Like,
I know what
is
you
this
mean.
okay that I don't mean to turn into a coach on it, but like, what if
No,
we are in a realm of everything's okay? And if we just totally pivoted and talked about fire trucks for 2 hours, that's totally fine too.
yeah, because we want to control. I want to control, right? And I was thinking when you were talking about the ego coming in to create, this vague, whatever, just sense of shame or what ifs or whatever it does. I was thinking about, man, if the ego is removed and we all are just are, what's our goal then? Like as human beings, because I've had this big question, and this is the most simple ass question ever lately, but for me, it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like,
And
really?
at least in the past, we had the illusion of an answer to that question,
Mm.
right? In other words, even though we were in one way or another subjectively rearranging chairs on the Titanic and thinking that we had our outcome and finally I know what I am. Oh, I get it. I'm a dentist, I'm a doctor, I'm a, whatever. I get it. I know what I am. I'm here to do this. Well, that concept has fallen apart. And all of a sudden, life begins finally
Hmm.
because we weren't with a false answer to what do I do, that if we don't have an answer, let me ask you this, like when the laptop closed and we realized I don't have control of what happens in the interview. If I was to go deeper with you there, and if you don't mind me opening the
Oh,
door here,
go. I'm good.
fill in this blank. And this is for whether it's this interview or past instances of feelings like no control or don't know
Mm.
what to do. Fill in this blank. If I don't know what to do, if I don't have control, I will be what? Like what's exposed? if I
Wow.
don't know what to do?
I think the first word that pops in my mind is like an amateur.
Okay. What if I say to you, what if you right now, you're going to be the present space. I want you to notice
Sure.
this. In your body is a childhood pattern, child or past before now, that
Yeah.
says, I can't be amateur,
Mm-hmm.
and has had that underlying fear and then created a beautiful solution in the past of kicking butt, making things happen. But imagine that even though we've been good at that, there's still this fear of I'm not loved if I'm amateur,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so inside of you, from a moment of trauma, I'm going to guess, the girl has a moment where she felt embarrassed, looked amateur, and created a solution of massive preparation, incredible performance, making it happen so she doesn't look amateur. But way under that is the little, I want to say in a sweet way, infection
Sure.
of, but I'm still not, just as long as this is all perfect, then the I can't be amateur shows. What if 2026 is about the actual healing and alchemizing of you can't be amateur, which is us being the space now, because remember, you and I are just the now,
Right.
and you're going to tell the girl inside, wherever she is, oh my gosh, without my notes, I look amateur. And what if you right now take a deep breath in and on the exhale, say to the girl, you're allowed to be an amateur in my body.
You're allowed to be an amateur in my body.
Yeah, I love you even if you're an amateur.
I love you, even if you are an amateur.
Yeah. And you might feel emotions, by the way, because
I feel
she's never
excited.
known. Yeah. Oh,
I do.
good.
I do.
Good.
I feel like I'm like, oh man, I can be a kid. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
our idea of parenting is just the solution to the repressing of the kid, but the
Mm,
real you is a God self that loves also you if you make a mistake, you if you're
yeah.
embarrassed, you if you do it wrong, you if no one likes you, you if it's like we have really trained ourselves that the external approval is the solution, which just numbs it. It's in a way no different than alcohol. It's
Yeah.
just, okay, good. I look good right now, and I
Right.
have all this, so I don't have to look at that I look amateur. But deep under there is still a girl that believes she's not loved if she is amateur.
Mm,
And wait till that's alchemized, like that being allowed in here, right? All of a sudden will accidentally, as a byproduct, make you way more successful because the success is measured at I cover up amateur, which is still control. And 2026 has to remove almost all control,
how come?
right? Because control is actually an egoic construct. It's not based on like control in the old days. So we think about if you think about our great grandparents and people that grew up in like the 1930s and 40s, and they went through World War II and the Great Depression, and you go back, you're even more unconscious, you're in slavery, all these times, right? Back then, survival was the number one goal, and there was not this inner work nearly at the level that there is now. And so a lot of people were really the highest we knew you were identified as just make money, just survive, just go to the breadline, just get any job, just get any partner, right? And
Yeah.
just stay with them, and you are what you do. And you'll notice that a lot of older people, if they were in relationships that lasted like 60 years, very often completely never did any inner work, right? You ask an old person, in some cases, not all,
Yeah.
what did it feel like in here? They don't want to talk about it. It was a numbing third dimension energy. So the most we were in an older conscious is I am what I do. And that was necessary to get us out of a full victim mode of being controlled even more. And so then you have in the 80s, I am what I do, but I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm gonna, Tony Robbins shows up in the 80s, and we're gonna make it happen, and we're gonna achieve, right? And then I believe in the 2000s, we started learning I am what I think, right? So The
Yeah.
Secret comes out in 2006. Esther Hicks is amazing in teaching you how to
Mm,
think positive. Your vibration matches that. And all of a sudden, we start to learn I am vibration, so think higher, right?
mm-hmm.
2020 was the beginning of also we've never felt love for the dark things. In other words, in
Oof.
2006, we're
Yes.
like, I'm thinking positive. Look at me think positive. I don't even focus on the negative. Well, 2020 is the reveal of the shadow to that. You're thinking positive only, but you don't know that there's all kinds of trauma that's causing you to think positive. In other words, it's when you hear a motivational speaker say, your success is their revenge, or your revenge on them is your success. It's like, okay, so your wounding is creating all of your achievements. In other words, it's because
Yeah.
you were bullied in high school that you built the business, but now your business is literally built on that you were bullied. So if we heal that wound, your business will fall. Right. So when we start to actually notice how many things, like if you create a relationship out of don't be lonely, that relationship's not going to survive because eventually that wound still needs to come to light.
Yeah.
2020 was the beginning of us being forced to see on a deeper level. In fact, it's almost perfect. It was 2020 because 2020 vision. And we start to go, man,
Yeah.
all of my I was what I do, my accomplishments, everything's scrambled all of a sudden. I have to stay home. I can't travel. I can't just go to a restaurant to numb. I have to think about, and all of a sudden, for the first time in the last 6 years, people are really letting go of their friends and family members even, and
Hmm.
people are like
Hmm.
breaking off of this thing where in the past we you had 10,000, 100,000 Facebook friends and you tried to keep up with all of them in some ways, and now it's like we barely are making it with two friends. It's like I
Literally.
just I just am just now. And so it's like we were all grabbing onto each other to not look at our wounds. And then 2020 to 2026 is like, okay, you might have noticed last year we didn't send as many Merry Christmases or receive as many. You're
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
letting go of longtime friends that were great friends, but not necessarily soul friends for the future because that was just longevity and I've known you a long time, but I'm ready to meet me and remove my addiction to my history here. And all of a sudden, we see that wound again.
Yeah.
Even with all of our accomplishments, the I can't be an amateur is still exposed here. So now we're just present for it. And for the first time ever, we have to become the adult space holder for that. And we can't just escape with more accomplishments to not feel like we're an amateur or a mistake or not enough. It's time to finally be present in the now for that darkness. Like we've learned, I think we're on this planet to learn love, and we've only learned love for people we have things in common with,
Yeah.
or positive thoughts, or or good things. But if we want to really find a God frequency, we got to find love for our enemies. We got to find love for shame. We got to
Yeah.
find love for heartache. We got to find love for guilt. And all of a sudden, we become present for those wounds. And all of a sudden, guilt's allowed to be here for the first time versus making tons of decisions to numb that guilt or that
Mhm.
regret or that shame. That's how we alchemize it. So we no longer are what we do anymore. Now we're in a new consciousness as I believe light workers on this planet to alchemize all the crap that our parents and our grandparents could never be in the consciousness to heal and create a world that's much more based on truth so our kids
Mm.
don't suffer, right? And all of a sudden, I'm so grateful because I think my daughter is even higher than I am, and she's just, she's not even picking up anything, like I really feel she's just a higher light worker than that. So I feel like there's a what do I do, by the way. What am I on this planet to do? I'm here to literally, through my being, alchemize the old world that was unconscious but necessary to evolve out of an even more unconscious time and become the I literally hold all the pain my parents held. They held their parents' pain. I become the now for it. I cry it out every day. I feel like I'm dying over and over every day, and I'm birthing every day.
Mm.
That what do I do is so much more exciting to me than I'm here to sell 5 million books and
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, I'm here to transcend all that is through my heart. through moment to moment awareness.
I don't know if you grew up with this word, but I grew up with the word calling. And I'm really
Hmm.
attached to this word. I like the word. I don't even know if I fully agree with it anymore, but it's just been something
Yeah.
I've been wrestling with. Because if you think
Yeah.
about I am not what I do, and we're just here in the now and in the present and trying to heal. When I think about the innate gift, I grew up evangelical Christian in the South, so I'm about to get churchy on you for a second. But when you
Sure.
think about the gifts and the calling, your unique position, I mean, you're funny. I'm not. I'm a talker. We have these natural things that God source, whatever it gave us. And so there's this idea of a calling and utilizing your calling to its fullest extent. And then the things I've been learning about the present and the now and the inner child work and all that stuff, it's almost like it's not necessarily denying that part, but it's trying to figure out like what part does that have in my life anymore? Like if it's not the driver, like I'm not what I do, but I'm also aware that I'm bent in this weird little way in the world
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
maybe I'm accountable to it, maybe I'm not accountable to it. I threw up all over you, but I'm curious your thoughts.
Sure. Well, I'll start by telling you what first of all, I believe one thing that's really exciting and I want to offer you and people is that I believe your calling changes. I believe that
Mm.
it was my childhood dream to be a stand-up comedian, and I lived that childhood dream, and then I outgrew it. And then I later discovered I think that dream was actually, or that desire was actually out of trauma. I actually think that to do stand up was my escape from a very unconscious, unsafe father. And the only place he and I bonded was stand up comedy. And to get his approval, I started doing stand up in elementary school and doing it without even realizing there's a fear behind it without even knowing it. Like it's just like, now do you see me, Dad? Now do you see me? Okay, I'll perform bigger. I'll keep going. So the calling at one point was that, and that was way back when I was at a consciousness of I am what I do. Actually, not even that. I'm loved because I'm not bullied in junior high as the chubby kid because I'm a comedian.
Yeah.
And so I start doing clubs and everything really young. And I have gone through different callings. I went through an achievement stage and I achieved number one comedian. And then I went through a vibration stage and I let go of everything heavy and I followed that. I feel right now something that's pretty crazy, which is more and more as I do this work, I believe that the world mirrors me and I believe your world mirrors you. Like I like
That's
all
wild. That's
almost
wild.
if not completely all the way. So doing stuff to get an external would be me just performing for the mirror and then seeing a guy that's desperate to get attention.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I'm standing in front of a mirror and like, okay, da da da, now did it work? I'm getting back, da 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 da, now did it work? So what I believe more and more is everything in the world that you're scared of outside of you is only existent inside of you.
Mm.
So if you're scared of going to hell, you have a character that's dancing on top of a hell that exists inside of your body that you haven't alchemized because you haven't surrendered to the actual God of the now, and you have instead an angry God that is mad at the people he invented. And and instead we're kind of hiding from what we're scared of, but it's inside of us. I believe also there's people are scared of and there is a crazy Illuminati one world government that's insane. We're revealing all the stuff about the Epstein files, all kinds of stuff. And there's a scariness of what's the world. That is true. It's outside, but it will mirror to you the fear you have on the inside.
Yeah.
You'll notice if you think of what's going to happen in the future, if you feel fear, that's for you to get present to because you're carrying an old world and you're seeing that old world on the external. So, more and more, my calling is to become the present space and merge with God to be here to alchemize all of that scared inside of me, and I will see it mirrored on the outside. I have seen it so many times in those 15,000 one-on-ones. I have seen so many so many miracles. And the miracles would usually be something like a person has an issue that's a trigger in their body. We get them to see it's inside, not outside. They heal it, and then the outside version of that 100% changes. So here's an example of that. This is a true story. I had a one-on-one with a woman maybe 5 years ago. Her complaint was, I haven't heard from my mom in 8 years. She won't talk to me. She and I do this work. I coach her. We get her to see that her resistance is inside. She has a mom inside. She starts to realize, kind of Byron Katie type work. She starts to say, my mom's allowed to never call me again. She truly cries it out. She releases her mom. We spend maybe 15 more minutes doing what she's going to do now that she's free of it. And right before the call ended, her mom called her. I believe that she let go of her resistance to what is, and all of a sudden it chased her, because that's the mirror of what she was trying to egoically control and not surrender and see that it's the truth. Her mom was supposed to not call her that long. I know, because that was the case. It's a Byron Katie quote. But when you start to realize, oh my God, there's an external that I'm trying to egoically control. I'm not into surrender with what God wants. I'm in a fight with God and saying it should be my way. And so it's weird, because in the past we'd put up vision boards and say, I want this. But really what we're doing is we're telling God, you're my butler and you give me what I want. And I don't want a world where my ego is more in charge of God than God is in charge, right? Because my ego,
Good.
right?
That's good.
All of us running the world from our ego, we all want to change the world, but ask a Democrat and a Republican what a changed world looks like. Everyone wants the world
Yeah.
in their ego's way versus to surrender to what the truth is. So I believe right now the universe is putting me in a position. My calling is to alchemize as much as I can in my body that is scared or feels unloved or feels triggered, and not fix that by changing the outside so
Mm.
that now I'm seen and this wound isn't actually healed.
Mm.
In other words, it's how much surrender can I be in? And then you start to realize my connection is only to myself, and then the world mirrors that. So that's my calling. And
Is
it's
that the
it's a hot,
timeline
yeah.
shift thing? Is that the timeline shift thing? Because if you think about the when you said that she was like, my mom doesn't call me, and that part got healed, and then the mom called her. Is that
Yeah.
where what people would call like a timeline shift, where you bumped into another reality? I told you earlier I've been trying to figure out this timeline shift thing
Yeah.
because I read Quantum Leap or whatever the book that was, and I was like, damn, this is
Yeah.
interesting. Where does that play into each other? What do you think?
Well, I have a definition of timelines that's really interesting. And I learned something recently about a CIA project that blew my mind and fits what I believe timelines are. And I'll tell you about it. So before 2012, we did not have the access to our soul that we are having now. And the only reason it feels chaotic is it's just unfamiliar, but it's actually incredible. We're getting closer and closer to the truth of what we are. And if you're the older you are, the more before 2012 time you had. So this feels like just chaos because you were more the egoic linear construct, right? So imagine way before 2012, you might notice that, like, you think about things like it didn't, you could just, you do what you want to do, and there was not this questioning, and you weren't looking at your soul as far as, is this relationship aligned with my, it's just, yeah, I like that person, I'll date them. Not like, this isn't my soul's truth. This is a different type of dialogue, right? So I believe we were collectively much more of a 3D energy, and the 3D energy worked with one linear timeline. And what I mean by that is, in the 80s and the 90s, we had a much more forward trajectory that was linear. Let me explain it this way. Imagine that you, up until 2012, worked in a floor of a building and you didn't know it was a building. You just really figured this linear floor out.
Yeah.
And you're going to be the very best of the end of that floor. And then an awakening happened in 2012. It started. This is where the beginning of, like, following your soul started happening. Or if you don't follow your soul, you're going to be sorry because things are falling apart a little bit. So imagine we're on this linear timeline. And this is what the CIA was talking about too. This blows my mind. There was a project that the CIA used to have called Project Looking Glass. And Project Looking Glass, I don't know if you've heard of it,
I haven't.
is this thing is that they could look in and actually see a predictive future so that they could plan for or control or see like it could literally remote view and tell them what the future was going to be.
Stop
And
it.
then it
That's
was
cool.
literally announced that in 2012 it no longer could do it. And the reason is because we were more linear and things were more predictive. Your past much more equaled your future with a little bit of growth. But imagine that you thought you're this one floor of a building, and then imagine 2012 is the start of an elevator starts going. And all of a sudden, you're looking down floors, and that's like time. And so we have a future we predict, but the next month, all of a sudden, there's a new floor. So it was the truth of the future of that timeline. But now the elevator goes up a floor, and now it's looking down another floor, and now it's looking down another floor. And you'll notice right now, predicting the future is impossible.
Mm.
It's just, it changes too much. It's like, so what's 2026? The elevator is flying, and it has no more true predictive future. In fact, many people that are good at predicting, stock market analysts, all that stuff, are literally like, I can only predict up to a couple months now. I can't predict years out
Mm.
because there's so many more factors, and the one that's predicting itself will die because it doesn't mean you'll die. It just means the false you that can look down timelines is dying because the elevator is now alchemizing and healing all the false lies that were all about certainty and predictions. And so now from 2012 to now, it's just so exponentially fast. And what's really happening is the elevator is going faster and faster, and what's falling off is control. And it was certainty that wants to predict the future,
Mm.
right? It's a protective mechanism. I want to predict the future so I can do things right or so I'm safe. But what's really happening is it's literally slipping fully for all of us into God's hands. And so everything you're holding on to that's not what God wants you to hold on to is going to fall off.
Yeah.
Everything that's not your soul must collapse because it's your ego fighting what's happening that's keeping it. And so God will let you know by making you unbelievably addicted or exhausted or, sick, massively sick, because it's like, I'm going to make all the false yous sick so you get present and listen and stop egoically running an agenda that's completely separate from what I have for you. And so we are in a frequency of exponential force to surrender so that we don't run a world that our ego wants, so that we can stay the best of the small selves or the best of the caterpillars. The butterfly you is guided by God in the now, doesn't need a future,
Mm.
is here, is present. In fact, if you think about ever a moment of a true breakthrough, or you're on ayahuasca, or when you're asleep and dreaming, you're only in this awe because you're in the now, right? The ego's trying to get the best of I can see my future because I have enough money in the bank. But the now is like, this is the feeling we want. You want God. You don't want a
Mm.
bunch of certainty so you can be the best of the caterpillars. We want to become a butterfly, and it's going to be a mess. And even if day one of a butterfly is going to be way messier than the best of the caterpillars, but you're a butterfly. And the butterfly you is very connected to source, moves based on intuition and soul, follows callings, does what God wants, surrenders an agenda that's against source, right? It's going to be miraculous, but we don't want the old world that still had child trafficking, just more secret,
Yeah.
still had manipulative control of government, still had, you just had your agenda is good so you don't have to look at stuff. We don't want that
Mm.
old life anymore. We want the truth.
This is a big question. I know we have like a few minutes left. Um, do you believe that, or still believe that following your, I guess the word would be bliss, how I interpret
Hmm.
it, following
Yes.
what brings you joy? It was, I was just reading it earlier.
Yes.
You do believe that. It's still,
Yes.
it's going to manifest into abundance in your life. And does abundance look differently now in your mind than maybe you meant it in the illusion of money?
Yes, I would say, well, yes and no. So I would say following your bliss is the most important thing you can do, but be aware that you've accessed deeper levels of bliss than the egoic leap that you thought you should take. In other words, there you got to get connected to what's the highest bliss,
That's
right?
it. That's
So
it.
does that make sense? Like in other words, if I it's almost a loneliness of what the bliss is for me now. So let me give you an example. If I if I took the follow your bliss idea at most levels, it's still from the level of what should I do so everyone likes me? It's still
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
level of, right? So let's say if you're me, it could be very easy for me to not listen deep enough and go, "Oh, my bliss is to fill another giant theater and do a giant 2-day event." It might be, but I can tell what it really is to be really present for the wounds in my body and spend more time alone or just with my wife. But that's not the thing that the ego is partying about. In other words, the ego's bliss is different than the soul's bliss. And the soul's bliss often sounds so different than what society would agree on is your bliss. And so sometimes we get connected to an egoic bliss that says, I should do this. I should start my business today. But the soul's going, yeah, but I want to lie down. I want to just take the day off. I want to, right? And so I definitely say follow your bliss, but get really in tune with what your bliss is because it's totally different than what society agrees is the bliss,
Oh, that's so good.
right? Does
That's
that
so
make
good.
sense?
That's so good. I know we're right at time. We can cut this out. Amber, do you have anything you want to add? If not,
Yeah, yeah. We got a little more time if you want, but if you got to get
yeah.
off too, that's fine.
No,
But
no.
yeah, if you want to,
I think Amber, I'd love to hear what you think. I'm a new fan of yours.
Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. That was such an amazing conversation. And there were so many points in there that I thought were so magical. And I just felt you, I felt your heart. And I was like, I bet we have similar stories. I could just feel it when your word about amateur came up.
Mm,
And I I think that would be a point to, add on to was that I think if we could all be really okay and excited about being amateur because every day is new, right? Every day is this
yeah.
new beginning. And I, similar to you, we don't want to feel like an amateur, right? We want to feel like an expert. We want to feel like a master. But the truth is that we are always changing. Information, wisdom is never ending. And so in some ways, we might be amateur all the time. And I'm just learning to be in the past couple years, like really, really okay with that and actually being excited about that. I have 15 years, more than 15 years experience in my field, but I can also, when I'm really, really truthful, I'm like, I don't know anything.
mm,
There are so many different opposing beliefs and opinions out there in the field of holistic health, spirituality, and they can both be true. And that's really what I'm learning is that more than one thing can actually be true. And I never thought that
Mm,
before.
mm.
So I loved that you felt this amateur feeling of like when your notes went out. I was sitting there going, "Yes, I'm so glad Heather's notes went out because now we can be having a conversation with God. Now we can be having a conversation with the real yous, like
yeah.
Heather and Kyle can really be just open this blank slate. That's actually one of the most magical and my favorite thing about Kyle that I learned from him and have really embraced is that he doesn't plan for anything. Like when he has like and I shouldn't say anything. I'm talking like when he is showing up to do his work, to have an event, to do a podcast, to be interviewed, anything like that, there is never an agenda. There's never a note. I remember the first event I did with him. It was like maybe a 2-day event. I can't remember. And I was like, "Do you don't have like a sticky note or anything? Like, do you want to write anything down?" He was like, no. And I literally saw that there's nothing planned. And he talks about it in such a beautiful way is if he has a plan, if he has the agenda, then God can't come through. And
Mm.
it's not to say that your notes or your questions that you had that crashed weren't amazing ones, but look at how magical this conversation just unfolded between the two of you. It was so beautiful and it didn't feel amateur at all. It felt like God level conversation.
Mm,
Yeah.
wow.
And I think I hear you and I believe you and I can like feel the truth of that because earlier when you said being amateur, like I literally felt excited because I was like, I
Yes.
felt like a kid. I was like, hell yeah, let's just talk. It
Mm,
sounds great.
Yeah.
But then there, that part comes back where this is interesting, but the curse of like making an impact, like the weight of making an
mhm.
impact, like
Mm-hmm.
we're supposed to make an impact in this world and help people and change their lives and
Yeah.
so forth. And again, that's a lot of the old ministry stuff coming out of me. But then there's like this element of like, okay, if I'm not striving and prepared and ambitious and wanting to build and grow, reach more audiences and all of that, then I'm not making an impact and I'm not helping people. And so it's like almost this false humility type thing of like I'm here to
Mm-hmm.
save and
Mm,
help. And I've noticed
yeah.
that a lot in myself. And I just want to address it because this is called unconventional leaders. So a lot of our folks in
Yeah.
here want
Yeah.
to make an impact, but also too, I feel like sometimes that holds us back from making an impact,
Oh,
you know.
Well, can I offer something on that? I have something really big on that. I believe very much that older self-help was unbelievably helpful for that time, and we have to consider the
Mm,
consciousness we're in. There's times where Wayne Dyer said, "Don't die with your music left in you," right?
right.
And let me tell you the shadow to that. I have so many one-on-one people that are from past self-help and through what you just described that are worried that they're not going to make an impact on the planet and that they're wasting their life. And I'm not saying don't live your life fully, but you have a negative fear warden in your head that is now trying to make an impact out of fear, not a calling. And so it's like, I better
Mm,
make an impact. I better get my book out. Now you have 10 million self-published books that no one's reading, and everyone's just doing the shadow to that. And that what I want to offer is is that if do you ever listen to David Hawkins or read David Hawkins?
that was in my notes.
David Hawkins is. Do,
I was
do you
gonna
like
ask
do you
I
like
was
him
gonna
or?
ask I
anyway,
was gonna no, I was gonna ask you about David Hawkins. It was in my notes that
Uh,
go ahead.
well, I
Hawkins background.
100% resonate with this as 100% truth. I believe your frequency that you're emitting is worth so much more than what you're doing.
Mm,
Meaning, like, if you understand the David Hawkins scale, right? At 200, you go to courage. This goes all the way up to 1,000. At 400, you're at like the best of the intellect. At 500, you're in love. At 540, I think it is, you're at unconditional love. The higher you go up, the more you're counterbalancing the unconsciousness of the world. So it shows that a person at 700 is counterbalancing 70 million people under 200. And you're making a collective vibration that's so truth-based that they can't have wars or anything anymore because your frequency is higher. So I'd rather be, if I had the choice, a person at 700 sitting in a cage that no one, or a cave that no one, not a cage, but a cave that no one knows, over a person at 500 getting 10 billion books out, right? So if you really get the number one goal I have is I believe that I'm impacting the world more via my frequency. So it's true, like
mm,
be an impact for the world, but the higher we go up in awareness, the more we actually realize the quantum physics world is showing the observer effect is the factor. So your seeing is more impactful than your doing from less seeing. So when we are trying to force action, but we don't see the wound that's being covered up with the action, or we don't see the, okay, a long time ago church told me your impact matters, and so I have this pressure that's actually ignoring the calling that says I just want to hear what's here. And now I got to make this happen. All of a sudden you're using that old teaching that says I got to make an impact, which is actually an addiction
Yes.
blocking you from your soul's awakening. And so we have to really notice that when you asked earlier, do you follow your bliss? The ego's bliss would be, okay, I'm going to get the impact out. This, like when Amber said something about, what did you say? You were talking about being amateur.
Mhm.
If you said follow your bliss, one person's bliss might be, I'm going to build stuff so I prove I'm not an amateur. But my
Mhm.
bliss would be, I'm going to learn to love the amateur, right? So the souls goes, I would love to find love for the one that thinks he's an amateur,
Mm.
that feels like he's not loved if he's an amateur, more than make $20 billion and prove that I'm a professional.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
And I think can I add to
Yeah.
that? I think
Please.
that part of the problem is the proving, right? There's nothing wrong with making an impact, but it's that egoic need to be able to measure it, right? Like how many followers do I have? How many books have I sold? You know, whatever your field is, it's like we're only making an impact. We believe we're only making an impact if it's measurable. But I will tell you from my personal experience, I think I'm gaining proof that I am making more of an impact now where I'm not working, right? I gave up
Right.
my
Right.
practice and I slow down and I really do feel like I was going to say this in a totally non-David Hawkins way, but Kyle said it already. It's exactly right. Your frequency is making an impact.
Yeah.
Like your light is making an impact. So the more healing and the more clear we can be, I believe the bigger the impact. We don't have to know. And that has been my problem, right? I'm like, I'm not, I like your comment about the calling or the question you had about the calling. I always felt like I had this huge calling, and my biggest issue was like I couldn't get it out. I couldn't figure out how to like
Yep.
make that. And when I realized that that's really, I mean, again, I want to really emphasize there's nothing wrong with wanting to make change in this world and wanting to like share a gift. But it was, for me, it was like this almost, I didn't know it at the time, but this egoic thing. It was like, I have something. And it's
Mm.
like, no,
That's
what I
true.
have is love and light. And I can share that smiling somebody at a coffee shop. I don't have to be, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I fill in the blank, whatever it is for you. Like, I can just be. And the more I am okay with my being, I really feel like then God puts opportunities in front of you. Like I didn't know I was going to be having this conversation with
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
How many people, how many more people are we impacting? Or I personally, like I have no idea and I don't have to know, and I'm okay with that.
And I'm going to throw one other thing on this that's really weird. The I that has to make an impact is not including all the factors of how much help is trying to happen on the external. In other words, I'm doing it without God. I'm doing it
That's
without,
it.
let me tell you this example. And Amber and I have had the most amount of synchronicities I've ever seen
Mhm.
in my, I mean, this is really real. When Amber and I met, we talked for 6 weeks long distance before we got together. And we were having at one point 16-hour days of conversations. I mean, this is such my soulmate. It's crazy. And Amber has this fun synchronistic thing. And she says, I there's a sign I like to look for, and I have a weird specific sign. I just want to know this before I know that we're, she was in, but she was like a cute thing. And she
Yeah.
said, I want to see, when I see a blue wolf, that's how I know.
That's
And
awesome.
I was like, a blue wolf? Like that was so specific and ridiculous. And I was just like, okay. So I took an oracle card and took a picture of a regular wolf and painted it blue and sent it to her. And I was like, found one. And she's like, it
And
can't
then
be
nope.
from you.
That's awesome.
And so this was her fun thing. And eventually it was pretty quickly
The next day.
the next day. So
Mm.
not eventually, the next day, she found Blue Wolf coffee. And then we were dating, and we've been seeing blue wolves everywhere. And what we didn't even know This is so crazy. I had an assistant working at my house, and Amber and I were at a park, and she looked at the gate to my house and she goes, "Do you know you have two blue wolves on the gate to your house?" And I didn't, just the previous owners had
I
left
have
some,
chills.
Yeah.
yeah, metallic thing. And the only thing that was on the gate to my house was blue wolves. And I didn't know that. And I just am not that type of observer. And that's because my ego's like, what do I got to do? Versus
Right.
seeing the outside as a mirror and
Mhm.
seeing this is a thing. Here's another example. In 2023, when I was about to date Amber, and we were getting closer. So Amber's maiden last name, or Amber, it was Amber Lynn
Hmm.
Hollis is her name. And then so I'm on my way to an event in Salt Lake City. I get off the plane and there's a guy holding a sign for another woman, and it literally says Amber Hart Lynn. Okay. It says that. And I take a picture of it because I'm so shocked. Now I got to tell you the weirdest thing. This last year, 2025, Amber and I, this is nowhere near where we were. We fly to Monterey for my daughter's birthday, which is also where we met. We fly back, we land at Austin. Amber Hart is on, if for our plane getting off, this dude's holding the sign for the same person. And I said, let's just wait and we get, because I want to see who this woman is, and we wait, and this woman goes, "Yeah, I'm her," and I goes, "Your last name Lynn?" And she said, "It's Line." And I go, "Okay, were you in Salt Lake City in 2023?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Was a guy holding a sign for you there?" And she said, "Yeah." She turns out to be a realtor for our city in and her and there's a sign at an elementary school that we pass every
Every
day that
day.
she's a sponsor for now, and it just says Amber Hart
Wow.
literally, and
Wow.
her name is Amber Lynn. So literally it's like God's going, go after her. She's it.
Mhm.
Like, and so imagine how much more if you're open to receiving it, you're supported in synchronistic, miraculous ways that your egoic mind that thinks of just you do this and make an impact isn't including.
Hmm.
And I have a billion stories like that. I mean, our life is just like whatever it is, we just know the next thing that'll happen. And so God is almost asking us to merge with it and stop thinking it's all on me to make an impact in this way that doesn't include God, that adds all this force and effort. That's really a wounded 5-year-old trying to make your parents happy even when you're grown up. And when you start to like really get into surrender, you start to understand there's a synchronistic external help happening, that the one that's trying to make an impact is actually pushing God away
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and not receiving that you're in flow, you're enough now. Why don't we move from I'm whole now and see what calls to us versus this pressure of I got to make an impact that we don't even know what it looks like. And it's like,
Hmm.
who's to say the miracles aren't also impactful,
Right.
you know? And so it's just been this incredible surrender in this relationship. Um, that is just showing me any what do I do is some escape from my God self anyway.
When y'all were talking, all I kept thinking is like, isn't it wild how much we resist God's love? Like just the pure love
Yes.
that's already here. And it's like this, it's just, it's not funny, but it kind of is. It's just so wild, like how hard we fight that
Yes.
love and that wholeness
Yes.
that's already here. And there's nothing that we have to do or become or
Yes.
be or anything. It's
Right.
like already here. And it's just so wild. We're like, no, I want to fight you. Like, no, I want to be in
Right.
Yeah.
control. And it's
I want to
humorous.
fight you so that I make you happy because I have made an impact for you, right? Like
It's crazy.
it's what you just said is so huge. You know, the people that follow your work or my work are usually much more empaths than obviously narcissists, right? A
Mhm.
narcissist isn't going, how do I grow? A narcissist is much more, I know how it works. And an empath is like open heart looking at themselves more, right? And one of the biggest problems that empaths have is they're used to being an empath because their life was full of narcissists. So they're used to doing a ton of work, and the counterbalance to them is holding up takers. I'm a giver, you're a taker.
Yes.
The number one way for empaths to heal is to receive. If an empath would just receive that you're loved for a while
Hmm.
and stop chasing that you're loved, which starts with the energy of I'm not, and that I have to achieve my love, that I have to earn my love via effort and views or money or whatever, then if they could just sit back and spend the day, like that's why I'm like the best thing they could do is take 2 weeks off and sit and listen with no screen.
Oh, yeah.
They would just sit there and be freed and realize everything's fine. And the one that goes, what do I do to make an impact, would die. But the frequency, it's kind of the equivalent of like if you were dreaming and you're in the dream looking at everyone going, how do I impact all these people? You could get really good at that, or you could wake up. And
Damn.
the waking
That's
up will
good.
just change the whole thing.
That's
Like
good.
then they'll mirror your awakening, right?
Mm.
It's just different.
Mm. You both have been just incredibly generous with your time, your energy, Amber, being willing to jump in here. Thank you. So
Oh, of
I'm a
course.
fan of yours.
Thanks for the invitation. It was a pleasure.
It meant a lot to me to be able to spend a few minutes with the both of you. So thank you for saying yes and being willing to say yes to a stranger on the internet. 'Cause I know that's always a risk right there.
No,
Uh,
I've seen your stuff and you're so great.
is there
Yeah, you're
anything you'd
doing
like to point our listeners to before we wrap up?
yeah. I looked at you, but I know that I have the products.
Yeah, do you know where they are?
Yeah, I do. I know where they are. Yeah, we've been making a new site. But if they go to kylecease.com/courses, all of our stuff is there. If they want to do one-on-ones, I have tons of different, one thing that I think was not a mistake, but sometimes feels like it, is I decide to make really incredible courses cost almost nothing.
Mhm.
And I think that because it costs almost nothing, sometimes people just think it's not worth it.
Hmm.
And I'm like, gosh, should I take this $20 thing and make it $1,000 and it'll move more? I'm not saying we don't move a lot, but I'm saying I think people don't know. Like I'm putting out literal crazy 2-day courses and making them $20. So we did an event called Out with the Old, In with the Now, which is how to heal your now stuff and transcend it. That's a $20 thing that's on kylecease.com/courses. I do a 2-day course that was live on stage called Boundaries. That's so awesome. We have a course called Your Soul is Not for Sale. I'm so proud of. And then also, this will be the last year of my membership site called Infinite Expansion, which we're in our ninth and final year, ninth or eighth, I forget. I think
This
we
will be
go
the
into,
ninth. Yeah,
yeah.
it's the ninth.
And I'm so proud of it, but we need to go on a honeymoon, so it'll be our last year, and then we're going to travel a little. But I do a live call every Wednesday, and every Sunday we do hot seats. We shift people. All of our past courses are on that. Oh, actually, not all of them, but most of them. And it's so awesome. It's like over 1,000 hours of content and vibrationally shifting everything every call. It's everyone's so different than the one before. So
Oh, and they just keep getting better. It's almost sad that it's the last year, but it's not, you're
yeah,
not going away.
no,
It's just an amazing space for like if this content is at all interesting, like that's what we're doing. Just having conversations. People can ask questions on Wednesday nights. He does a Q&A or a hot seat where somebody actually comes on, and it's very much like this. It's just it really truly is life-changing, and it can be in an hour. And I'm kind of sad that it's the last year, but I'm also really excited to see what's next. And
Happen, yeah.
to our the point of our conversation is like when you feel something that like needs to shift or isn't quite the bliss that it used to be, it's like God talking to you. So this is Kyle's courageous heart saying, "All right, I'm gonna end this and see what God has for me, and it'll be just more magical. There's no doubt. I know it."
yeah, yeah. So they can get, thanks, babe.
Yeah.
You're that, like,
Y'all
also
are
I will
so
say,
in love. It's the coolest thing to see. I don't see
we're
this that often. It's beautiful.
Oh,
we're crazy in love,
I'm so
and
lucky.
I feel so supported. And I think a couple aspects that are really helpful is both of us are in this for our soul, and both of us are in this to find what we truly are. You know, at one point I said out loud, merge me with my soul, no matter what the cost. And that turned out to be 2 weeks before COVID started. So I felt like partly did I do this, but it was like the end of a lot of friendships that didn't align and all kinds of darkness that I had to go through. And around the same time, she was saying out loud to God,
I mean, every meditation I ended with place me where I can become my highest self and serving at the highest level with no like in my job or in my past relationship. It was like place
right.
me. And
And I
it
think,
did.
yeah, those were both requests that were open-ended versus I want to sell 10 million books or
Yeah.
please help me make this money. Or it was just like, I am, both of us were declaring to God, I'm willing to surrender to you. And when we met each other, we 100% knew right away. We felt it. And it was like, that's it. And I've had, I've had too many moments that said, this sounds so corny. And if you weren't in this, just sounds stupid, but we both have even experienced at the same time revelations that we knew each other before. Like we were like looking at each other and having glimpses of actual memory at the same time of, holy crap, I knew you before this and we knew this.
Yes.
And I mean, it is really trippy. So I guess the secret to that is, I think many people get into relationships to cover up a wound, like I won't feel lonely or whatever. And I'm not saying that didn't exist in our hearts too, but it really, like, I want to know the truth of what I am on this planet. And I want to be with someone who wants to know the truth of what they are on this planet more than, status or fix a trigger or something like that. Like, so, I mean, our conversations are like two detectives on a like constant, scavenger hunt. Like that was this and that means this. And it's just this really fun revelation about why things are happening and what our soul is. And it is the most fun, expansive relationship because of that. And there's definite pain and challenges because it's also the death of our egoic selves to be together.
Yeah.
You literally have to kill all of your egoic self to do this.
Yeah. No, that's
Can't wait to see where y'all go from here. I cannot wait to see it. Thank you both for your time today. This was incredible.